What was that? Are these tears? Oh, snap.
Sorry.
All right.
And so there was probably a solid 30 seconds where I wasn't in that room on that first take. And
Where'd you go? Like mentally? Where'd you go
just
mentally?
black.
Oh.
Like I could still hear, but I couldn't move and I couldn't speak. Because I recognize that there's nothing particularly unique about my look.
I don't. Okay.
I am the picture of the average white girl. I am 5'4", brunette with blue eyes. That is pretty standard.
No, I mean I don't. Okay.
If you look at any talent agency, they're going to have someone that has those features.
I suck at intros. Today I'm here with Angelina. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Freaking fantastic. Best day of my life.
That's incredible.
Tell the people who you are.
So I'm Angelina Buzzelli. I'm an actress, writer, and director based here in Atlanta.
Fantastic. So, but you're not from Atlanta.
I am not from Atlanta.
Where'd you come from?
I was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
Very Italian, tri-state family.
Interesting.
So any of those gangster movies you watch with that New York Italian accent, with the coffee and you get the water, that's actually my family. So I never watched any of those shows or anything because I'm like, why do I need to be entertained by what I have every day? And I love it. Love it so much.
Interesting.
Yep.
Concept there you got there.
So born in New Jersey, was there as a child, and then my sister, my parents, and I moved to Maine in 2006.
Oh, okay.
And we were there. We were only supposed to be there for a few years.
Yeah.
They're still there.
Oh, really?
Almost 20 years later. And then I came down to Atlanta toward the end of 2023.
All right, let's start there. So, why'd you move?
2022.
22? Ah.
Good grief.
Why'd you move in 22?
So, I had actually been planning on moving down to Atlanta since 2017 or 2018.
Why is that?
Well, I had been acting my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up on stage, performing, dancing, singing, acting. But acting was the thing that resonated the most with me.
Why is that?
Why is that? I think, honestly, it was because I recognized my limitations for the other two.
Oh. You know what? I hear you.
So, I've never been flexible. I cheerleaded for a year in middle school.
Oh, really?
And had, the great jumps and stuff like that, but never flexible. Never, ever. And if you want to be a professional dancer, that's kind of a requirement.
It is.
And then with singing, I always loved it. Karaoke's always a fun night for me. But I am more of an alto than a soprano, and most leading roles, like on Broadway, tend to be up there in pitch.
Yeah. Hey.
Say Phantom of the Opera, for example. Dream role. Could never do it.
Oh,
never.
Yeah,
Not without severely hurting myself or years and years of training, which could be possible, but didn't have the money for that. So acting, I just found it to be an escape for me, because I don't know what kind of background you have, if you've ever done any improv or anything.
No.
I highly recommend it. But
I do too. I feel you. Yeah.
So growing up doing theater, there was always warm-ups that you would do when you show up to kind of get you in the zone. And one of the things that we would do is we would talk about our highs of the week and our lows of the week. And everyone would applaud our highs, if we got an A on a test, or if we accomplished a goal of some sort. We would celebrate that. But then if something bad happened, like you twisted your ankle, or you failed a test or whatever, they would say, leave it at the door.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay, leave it at the door, And
wait, did y'all still talk about it though, or just don't even talk about it when you walk through the door?
It was still a safe place if you wanted to talk about it, but mainly it was just to get off your chest, celebrate the victories and be there for each other through the low times. And I took that pretty literally. The older I got, and the more emotions you're feeling in middle school, high school, college, those are pretty formative years.
Yes, they are.
So for me, I literally saw it as, when I show up, I put my shoes, Angelina's shoes, at the door, and I step into the shoes of the character. So for that 2 hours, 3 hours, however long the rehearsal was that night.
Yeah.
I literally left everything that was hurting me, everything that was weighing me down or I was just stressing out about, and just becoming this character for that period of time. So it was a really great reprieve from the weight of the world for me. And it was kind of, to be honest, a little unhealthy at times, how much I would kind of shelve what I was feeling to focus on a character. But some decent time in therapy helped me, have a more healthy relationship with performing.
It got that deep?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that wasn't the reason why I went to therapy. But
okay. I was going to say, man, you really got into the character. All right. Okay. But I'm trying to fill in the blanks here. So you went from...
Sorry, I'm all over the place.
No. My mind is too. So you went from 22, you moved, right?
Yes.
But you have an MBA. What in the world?
I do.
What actor do you all know has an MBA? How do you get that?
So, as I said, performing has been a part of my life, my whole life.
Right.
My mom was extremely musically inclined. She actually had a record deal as a teenager. That's a whole other story.
Oh.
Hi, Mom. Love you. And so my house is always filled with music growing up. We had a piano where she would sit, play, and my sister and I would sing with her, and it was just a family affair. We loved it. When they would have guests over, we would always put on a little improv show, even as like tots.
What in the world? That is a stark contrast from my family. Okay.
We just loved it, It was just so fun to just put on a show. So I had that opportunity to fall in love with film, and I thought, oh, this is interesting, because with theater, it's always about how big can you be,
right.
How loud can you be, how bold can you be, because they always say that the person in the back row should have the same experience as the person who's sitting right in front of you. So you
do they? That's interesting. How did? I'm not a big theater person. What does that translate to? What does that mean?
Sure. So our director of that show would literally sit in the back row for a performance, and if they couldn't hear us or they couldn't see what our character was feeling in that moment, they would literally call us out in front of everybody.
Okay.
Louder!
That's
Can't
interesting.
Hear you. What? So you learned how to project. You learned how to use your diaphragm. We did all of those exercises and everything. So I did a lot of comedy. With big faces and expressions, and it was funny when I transitioned more into film, because I had to learn how to control these guys, because I have a very naturally expressive face. And
let's talk about that. How do you transition from theater to how do you touch it? How do you transition from theater to acting? But the techniques are different. Like you're used to, like you say, projecting, and you can a lot of times you can tell an actor that has a theater background from one that's traditionally narratively film trained. Like they're more. Have you gotten better? Are you still working on it? I
mean, I'm always going to be working on it.
Of course, right.
You're never going to hit a peak and say that I've reached the top of the mountain and I have nothing left to accomplish.
Yeah. Right.
I learn something new with every role I take, even with every audition I do. You take something away from that experience. So for me, again, the first and foremost was learning how to tone down my reactions and my expressions, because I was always kind of a goofy person growing up. I loved making people laugh, and again, my sister and I were always trying to entertain the family. Right. Just silly, goofy stuff.
I hear you.
Being in a silly, goofy mood a lot of the time.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I think the biggest technical change between theater and film is with theater, again, you have people hundreds of feet away from you.
There's no front seat, rear seat. Yes.
But in film, this can be the entire movie theater.
Right
here. And so it's so much more intimate.
Right.
And so much more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because they're going to see every pore. They're going to see whether or not you're actually crying.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things to cheat it.
Right, of course. Right.
But ultimately, there's a lot less room for error. In some ways.
That makes sense.
But in other ways, there's more room for error. Because with theater, it's live. If somebody misses their cue, if the gun doesn't show up on stage when someone is supposed to have one in their hand, you kind of just have to figure out a way to roll with the punches until someone has the opportunity to go and get it so the scene can continue.
Right.
With film, if someone's in the background of a shot or the boom or whatever, you just say cut and you go back to one.
Right.
So, in some senses, it's easier because you only have to memorize certain scenes at a time, certain pages every day, versus with theater having to know the whole thing all in one go. But at the same time, it's harder in that aspect because if it is a particularly emotionally taxing scene, which there were many of in Ambrosio,
we will get to it.
You have to put yourself back in that mindset every time you redo that shot. Because even if you get it in one take, you still need more than one angle. You still need the other person's coverage, or you need the wide shot, so you're going to be doing it at least twice or 3 times, even if it's perfect.
That sounds exhausting. Is that exhausting?
It absolutely can be, which is why you do so little. You're supposed to do so little a day in film. They say 5 pages a day is what you should expect to do. That is not what we did on Ambrosio.
That's what I heard, yeah.
With independent film, you break a few rules, and that was certainly one that we shattered.
You're not the only ones, yes.
But yeah, we did 19 pages one day, 32 pages in a weekend. Because,
That's crazy.
We knew what we were doing, we knew the lines, and we just kind of, rushed through it because the house we were filming in was very expensive to be at.
It was a nice house.
It was.
It's a nice house.
So beautiful. Worth the money.
I'm
no
glad
question
it was.
about that.
It looked like it definitely upped production.
Yes.
All right, so hold on. Let's go back. Did you answer how you got the MBA?
No.
Okay, all right.
No. This is what happened. I did warn him before we got started. I said, please cut me off. Because
I'm not good at cutting people off.
Anyway,
So,
how did I get the MBA? Great question.
Yep.
So, I knew I wanted to pursue acting.
Mm-hmm.
So, junior year of high school, my mom actually took me back to New Jersey, and we went and toured a bunch of schools in New York.
Okay.
Because I knew I wanted to pursue the arts. So I went to the New York Film Academy, the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and I loved both of them.
I bet.
I thought, oh my goodness, this is everything I want. Because with conservatory programs, it's not technically a degree. It's usually 11 months or 12 months of just intensive study.
Right.
Where you're studying 6 days a week, and on the 7th day you're expected to be auditioning and on set.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's hard. They don't really do scholarships for those. So there was that. And I also went through a series of challenging health problems toward the end of high school and into my college years. And so I had, these big dreams and aspirations, and then between the financial piece and my health, I kind of just took a step back because I'm very type A.
Oh. What's type A?
I need to have a plan. I need to have a budget.
Yeah, okay,
I like to have control.
Yeah.
As much as possible. A lot of the time it's not possible.
And
but I try to maintain control when I can. And
what'd you go through?
Lyme disease.
What is that?
Oh God, that's a whole nother story.
I'm sure it is.
It's a tick-borne illness.
Oh.
It kind of behaves in the body like an autoimmune, where things that should work just don't. But when you go and get those things tested, they all come back fine because there's not technically something
very frustrating.
wrong. It was because, again, I had grown up athlete from a family of athletes, and now I'm 16 years old and I can't climb a flight of stairs without my hips and my ankles and my knees aching.
My goodness.
And thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? And then you go to the doctor, they give you a clean bill of health, and now you think you're losing it because you know something's wrong. So I was finally able to see a specialist. They were able to diagnose me, went through a very rigorous treatment plan, and thank God I'm a functional human being now. I still struggle with the ramifications of it. I have to be careful.
Like what kind of careful?
Because one of the biggest side effects for Lyme is joint and muscle weakness.
Oh, dang.
And so I spent a lot of time in the gym in college just trying to feel strong again, because there's a period of many years where I did not feel strong at all. But recovery from going to the gym, for example, instead of just being sore the next day, I'm physically in pain.
Oh,
and
wow.
like if I worked my upper body, I can't lift my arm for the next 2 or so days without a lot of pain.
Goodness.
So, you know, there's things like that, or just having an overall sensitive stomach. Some days I'm fine, some days I'm not, you know. There's just, I don't want to get into that.
I understand.
But,
do you still deal with that?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, it's so, I feel like a different person now. When I go back and think about where I was 16, 17, 18, or even 15, that feels like a different person that I'm talking about, because I actually can live a full life now, thank God.
Is that what you were referring to in 2017? Something big happened to you?
So that was kind of a big piece of it, right? Okay. I knew ultimately what the goal was. Right. I knew what the dream was. And I had always talked to my parents about future planning and career and being smart financially. They gave my sister and I a lot of resources to help us be successful financially.
Nice.
And help us avoid making the same mistakes that they had made. And one thing my mom always said is, jobs and money can solve some problems. There's a lot of problems that can be fixed by writing a check. But if you dread waking up and going to work every day, that isn't living. It is not. So ultimately, the goal is to find the thing that fulfills you, and even if it doesn't allow you to go on lavish vacations or whatever, if you look forward to the next day and you're excited by life, then that's so much more a life worth living.
I agree.
Than having 2 weeks a year where you get to go crazy.
Right. No, hey.
Because you spend so many years of your life at work. So
I agree.
You gotta enjoy what you do, right? You know what they say, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
That is mostly true. I'm
gonna pull this closer so I can sit back.
How do you think? So let me ask you this.
I still haven't gotten to the NBA. I'm
exactly.
so sorry.
Yep, it's okay.
I'm
you know,
there, I promise. This all comes to a point, because I recognize that there's nothing particularly unique about my look.
I don't.
I am the picture of the average white girl. I am 5'4", brunette with blue eyes. That is pretty standard.
No, I mean I don't. Okay.
If you look at any talent agency, they're going to have someone that has those features.
In that sense, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
In that sense, okay, I feel you.
So I knew I wasn't just gonna walk into a room and someone say, "Hey, you're exactly what I need for this project." I was gonna have to prove myself.
Right.
One way or another. So.
How do you do that? How do you stand out?
How do you stand out?
Yeah, how do you stand out?
For me, I stand out, or I attempt to stand out by treating every audition, every rehearsal, every day on set as if the next director was in the room watching.
Right.
So if I treat an audition like, even if it's for a tiny short film, no budget, I'm not getting paid to be here. If I treat it like I'm in front of Christopher Nolan, then even if I don't book that role, those people are going to see that I am willing to put in the work and I'm willing to show up. And so with that comes your candor on set. So when you do book the part, when you do book the character, if you are extremely unpleasant to work with, they're not going to hire you again. Because there's easier people to deal with, right? So if you're pleasant to everybody, if you're friendly, if you're collaborative and just kind, it really goes a long way. So that's ultimately how I got to where I am since I've come down here, because everybody that I've worked with has invited me to come back. And Ambrosio is a perfect example. Alex invited me to play his sister in one scene in Malcolm. And I did it. I didn't even know if it was paid. It ended up being paid, but I didn't ask because I didn't care. I was just trying to get on set, just trying to network with people, just try to, get in the room where decisions are being made and people are making things, you know? And so I was just there that one day and had a blast. It was great to meet everybody, and And working with Alex is so fun because he's so good at what he does and just so professional. I thought I took things seriously until I met him.
Hey man, that dude is something else, man.
He is. And then when he was in pre-production for Ambrosio, he reached out to me about it and originally pitched a smaller supporting role in the film. And it was originally a short film. They were going to do a trilogy of 3 mythical figures, and this was going to be the first one. And I said, okay, cool. Well, keep me posted when the script's done, and I'll check it out, let you know. And then a couple months later, he got back to me with the full script, which was now a feature, and he said he wanted me to play the lead. And I said, are you sure? You've worked with me one day, in a very different kind of role, in a very different setting. That film was completely different than Ambrosio. And he said, well, you have this theater background. I've seen your reel. I know what you can do. And if you can carry a show, you can carry a film. And I said, well, thank you so much for believing in me and trusting me with this part, because I knew that this is a story he'd been trying to tell for years.
Yes, I remember,
it was something he was so excited about, and so it was a lot of pressure. But if I had said no to Malcolm because day players are beneath me and I have 20 years of experience and I deserve bigger, better roles, then that opportunity never would have come.
That's true.
So really how you stand out is just A, putting in the work, B, being pleasant, and C, being consistent. Because if you're all of those things, then people are going to want to have you on their sets. So
I agree for the most part with you.
And when it comes to talent agents and casting directors of the higher notoriety, a lot of agencies won't take submissions unless you have a referral, because there's so much talent out there, right? And they're inundated with applications, where after a while they just shut them off. When I was originally looking at coming to Atlanta, you could just submit your headshot. You can't do that anymore.
Really?
No.
So how do you
you need to have a referral from somebody that they already have some sort of relationship with to recommend you, basically.
How do you get that then? What do you do?
By
do you do that?
working with people.
Oh, you just have to know them. Just network.
I mean, if you take a class and the teacher is somebody who sees a lot of potential in you, they might write you a recommendation. Or if you work with someone on a set, another actor, and they have representation, their representative might see the film and see you and say, hey, I've got a space on my roster and I think you'd be a great fit for me. So that's a big piece of it too. It's just the more people you work with, the more people you connect with, that opens doors for bigger opportunities down the road.
That makes sense, and it sounds sticky. I'm gonna be honest with you. It sounds hard to navigate. It sounds like it can get muddy.
Next question. So being kind. You say that's how you stand out. Being kind. As you and I, I'm sure may know, that kind doesn't always work. Have there been times where you being kind did not work? You had to not be unkind to somebody?
Obviously, yes.
Okay, there we go.
You always try the patient, understanding route, but sometimes it's just not getting through. Or someone asks you to do something that's beyond your boundaries, and you have to stand up for yourself. And sometimes, if you say it nicely, they're like, "Oh, come on, just you can just do it."
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is my boundary, and this is what you're asking me to do. I'm not doing that. And it's difficult, I have found, as an assertive woman who likes having control and is happy to take charge when necessary. My whole life, I was always told I was so bossy.
Oh, really?
With group projects, if no one's doing the work, I'm gonna designate who's gonna do what, and I'm gonna make sure it gets done, because I have anxiety if I don't.
Right.
And so that was something that I was kind of insecure about going into adulthood, was trying not to come across as bossy, or trying not to come across as a know-it-all, because I was always called a teacher's pet and all of those things. So there's a balance to everything, right?
It is.
You always want to make the people that you're working with know that you appreciate that they're there and you appreciate what they bring to the table. And sometimes kindness isn't the way that people respond. Sometimes
it's not. Sometimes
people respond to you saying mean things to them in a comical way. I haven't quite understood that.
Me either, but it works.
But it does sometimes. Sometimes that's just, people sometimes struggle with compliments, and so you kind of have to phrase it as a backhanded compliment in order for them to actually take it to heart.
Right.
You know? So you just have to learn to what people respond to, and if people aren't responding the way you need them to, that's when you kind of let the kindness level go down a little bit and be assertive when you need to be.
Oh, do you like being that way with people? You like
I hate confrontation.
Oh, okay.
Hate it. Hate it. I avoid confrontation like it's the plague.
Dang. I feel
It makes me so anxious if I know that I need to confront someone about something. But ultimately, the sooner you get it over with, the more likely that friendship or that relationship can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because if you just let it simmer
yes,
until it gets to a boiling point, then it's going to be a lot harder to come back from that. So.
Okay. No, I hear you on that. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. So let's talk real quick about, because you mentioned the power of saying no as an actor. Let's briefly go over this before we get into Ambrosia. So the power of no. What's the power of saying? So you mentioned it.
Yeah.
What is the power of saying no as an actor?
Yeah. So for me, especially as a woman, when I was planning my move down here and thinking, do I actually have what it takes to be successful, or am I just throwing my life away by picking up and leaving everything behind? I looked at some of my favorite actresses and looked at what their first roles were. And almost all of them were rated R. Almost all of them were either a horror film
there we go.
Or very sexually inclined.
Oh. Well, who are they?
Scarlett Johansson, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson.
You know. So, again, huge Marvel nerd. So
that makes
I looked
sense.
back at her
it's coming back.
filmography. And I saw that trend of most of these women that are up there winning awards had to take their clothes off to get there. And that was very sobering of a realization, because that's never something I'm going to be comfortable doing. Because people, I mean, you know about the Me Too movement. Right? You know about women that didn't want to do those things and were still forced to do those things because they were warned that they would lose that opportunity or lose their job if they didn't. And so I'm thankful to be in an environment of the film industry now where a lot of that behavior isn't tolerated anymore.
Yeah.
But it still happens.
All the time.
I've heard stories from young women that I've worked with where they had an intimate scene on the schedule for that day, and the director said, oh, you know, by the way, I'm thinking this would be more impactful if, you know, you were topless or we saw your butt or whatever. And the actress has to make a decision in that moment. And different people have different boundaries, have different standards. You know, as long as it's consensual and everybody is comfortable and safe.
Right, of course.
You know, that's the goal, ultimately. But
what are your boundaries?
If I'm not willing to put it on my Instagram, I'm not willing to do it on camera.
That's a good rule. Okay.
So there was one role I did when I was back in Maine that was for a play, and the character in the script is described as wearing lingerie for a few of the scenes. And the show was on Broadway for a period of time, and so I went to try to find pictures and videos to see, okay, well, what are we talking? Like, how graphic are we talking here? And I saw a variety of different things, but she was always covered. She was never exposed, you know? And ultimately, when I was offered that role, I sat down with the director, and he told me that I could choose my costume. I could buy it. So I bought, you know, a bustier where, like, a lot of my chest was still covered. And I was wearing bathing suit bottoms because they're thicker, and you know, you don't have to worry about giving people a show they didn't pay for.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty much my boundary. Like, if I would be embarrassed if my dad came in and saw me filming that scene, then why would I do it for the whole world to see?
Right? No, I hear you.
And again, different people have completely different boundaries. I grew up in a very conservative household, and so for me, you know, purity was always very important.
Purity.
Yeah, and just having a conservative look, not showing a lot of skin.
Right.
So that's you know, number one boundary for me is nudity is no.
I feel.
The only time I could ever foresee myself doing something like that would be if it was not in a sexual setting.
I'm not.
If
I'm
it
not following.
was, let me think of an example. Because there's a lot of stories where a character is emotionally stripped bare, right? Emotionally.
Okay.
And it's not sexual at all.
Okay, I feel you. Have you seen The Substance?
No, but I need to.
Because she's definitely naked in that movie,
right.
and it wasn't like sexual. Well, I don't know. It wasn't supposed to be sexual. It wasn't intended to be sexual.
Because that's the other thing too. AI scares the crap out of me.
It should.
Because you do it one time, and now there's all sorts of stuff on Reddit of you doing other things that you never did.
Yep.
Surprise.
Yes.
AI. So that's a big thing of it too.
So how do you balance that? Because at some point, you drive yourself crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I don't know.
For me, when it comes to picking roles, there's a lot of roles that I don't even bother auditioning for because I know it doesn't align with my values, or it doesn't need to align with my values is more so than it can't oppose my values.
No.
If the character is something that goes against who I am or what I want to represent, then I'll have someone who does want to represent that, and that is important to them take that role, you know? Just like I wouldn't take a role that's meant for someone of a different ethnicity
I feel
just because I want the role. You know what I mean? So when it comes to saying no, and a lot of it is just being honest with yourself, because when you're just getting started in the industry, a lot of the time you feel like you can't say no, because if you do, then that person's not going to call you back, or that casting director isn't ever going to think of you again. But ultimately, if you never say no, you're going to burn yourself out. Never mind the emotional ramifications of knowing that you crossed a line that you told yourself you didn't want to one way or another. But if you just say yes to every single project, you're going to feel like you don't have time to prepare. You're going to feel like you're not resting enough. And you're going to get to a point where you don't have the energy you want to invest in the art anymore, because now it's just work.
Story of my life. I hear you. I think I went through that recently.
Yeah, and almost every creative person does.
Yeah.
So if you learn to say no, not only does it empower you to feel strong and in control of the characters that you're playing, but it also helps prevent burnout as a performer and as any sort of creative person. You need to figure out what's best for you.
Right, yeah. Does it get easier saying no the more you do it, or is it still hard for you telling people no? Or do you have a problem telling people no?
I used to struggle with it a lot.
No.
Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, is because it is very hard to say no, especially in the moment. If someone asks you to do something in the moment that you weren't prepared to do, and you don't like confrontation, and you don't want to make anyone angry, or you don't want to, mess up the day, or just, ruin the mood or whatever.
Well, they ruined it by asking you this crazy question,
Right, but for some reason, we always blame ourselves.
We do.
One reason or another, even though it's not our responsibility to do something. I mean, in the professional world, when you're on SAG sets, everybody has a rider for nudity or sex scenes where it is contractually laid out what they will and won't do.
Right.
So why should an indie film be any less?
Sounds right to me. Yeah.
So it is definitely hard to say no, especially if you didn't to start, because as soon as an actress derobes for one role, everyone's going to expect her to be willing to do it again.
Dang, you're right.
right? And again, as we were kind of joking about, even with the substance, you can have a nude scene in a film that is not intended to be sexual at all. It could be a abuse scene. It could be something brutal. You know? People still find a way to sexualize those things.
You know, I was thinking that. I was debating on how hard to push it, but, you know, guys will find a way to sexualize anything. I'm going to be honest with you.
People find a way to sexualize anything. And so it's important to be aware of that, I think.
Yes, it is.
Especially when you're getting started in the industry.
Especially then.
Because you are going to get more opportunities if you have fewer boundaries. That's just how it is.
True.
I remember being frustrated when I first moved down here because I was looking at casting calls, and every day I would see a new post about looking for women for a stripper scene. Looking for women for a music video that
That's crazy.
will twerk, in a club and barely wear any clothes or be topless. There's a ton of opportunities if that's what you're comfortable with. Yes. Right?
Do you look down on those people that do those things?
I don't, because ultimately sex sells.
It does.
Right?
Yes, it does.
Which is why you have movies like Anora. I have my opinions about that.
Anora? I'm not even familiar.
The one that won all the Oscars?
Oh, that one.
That one.
I didn't pay attention to this, but is that what it's about? It did, Oscars. Right? I do remember. Yeah, okay. Dang.
She's a stripper that falls in love with a rich guy. It's kind of like a Cinderella story, except.
Huh.
Yeah.
That makes sense then, because I've seen a lot of like the sex worker thing. Right. It was like a big theme.
Yeah.
At the anyway.
Yeah. That's why they kept saying thank you to the sex worker.
Right. Okay.
Ultimately, art doesn't really have boundaries.
Technically, right.
You look back on all of the Greek statues.
Hey.
All those men are naked.
Yes, they are.
All those women are naked.
Yes, they are.
You look at all the paintings of the cherubim. Everybody's naked, right? So for a while, nudity wasn't really taboo at all. Nudity was just part of art. Right? So, again, if you aren't as conservatively inclined and you, again, feel safe, everything is consensual, you just love to dance, you love to have a good time, and you're happy to go on set and be like, yeah, I'll twerk, I'll party, that's fine. Like, go have fun, go get that bag, sis. Like, do what you gotta do, just be safe.
Be safe.
Because, again, you give someone an inch and sometimes they'll try to take a mile. So you just have to, buddy system, make sure you have people in your circle you trust, make sure you have people that actually care about you and have your best interests in mind. But no, I don't look down on it at all, because ultimately, if it wasn't a successful industry, then it wouldn't exist, right?
True that.
So I was offered a role a month or so ago that was paying a lot of money.
Oh, nice.
But the director let me know that there would be multiple scenes where she was nude and a couple sex scenes. He was a writer, director, producer, lead, and didn't mention an intimacy coordinator.
Oh.
And so I said, thank you for the opportunity, but I'm going to have to decline because I don't want to put myself in a situation that could potentially become unsafe.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Right? So,
that makes sense.
By saying no to the opportunity as a whole, then you kind of protect yourself from being in one of those compromising positions on set.
True.
But, yeah.
That's true. Do you think this industry would be easier to navigate if you were a guy?
I think in some ways yes, but in other ways no.
Which ways yes, which ways no?
For no, I would say it depends on your look. Because with men and women, there are the stereotypical attractive metrics that you kind of need to hit in order to get the mainstream lead roles. Right? You need to be a certain height. You need to have a certain look. You need to not have certain looks. So for men, they could be extremely talented, but just not have that one look that someone needs and just never get booked. Right? I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons Alex started writing and directing his own stuff is because he has such a unique look that casting directors didn't really know what to do with him.
Yes, we talked about that.
Because he is Mediterranean and Asian and white, and somehow that becomes Mexican adjacent.
Yeah.
Fascinating how genetics work.
It is actually.
And how similar we all are at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kept getting stereotypical Mexican cartel-esque, drug dealer-esque roles, which can be plenty of fun. You know, you can milk that for a while, but ultimately, if you know that that's not even who you are,
right.
You know, you want to prove to people that you are capable of more, and you have more in the pocket, that you just need an opportunity to show. Right. So I think for men and women, you can run into the same thing with that as far as castability is concerned, and just being given an opportunity because of how you look, right? Right. I think with women, in some cases, it's easier to get into rooms because you're more likely to be chatted up by a producer at a bar than you are if you're a guy. Right. Not that I would ever be at a bar anyway, because I don't drink.
Oh, you don't drink?
No.
Dang.
I don't drink caffeine or alcohol.
Caffeine
alcohol. If I have to, but I try to avoid it.
Why is that?
Well, because I never really had it at all in college. Even when I was working out regularly, the pre-workout I would drink didn't have caffeine in it.
Oh.
Yeah. And so when I would... Yes.
I'm not very familiar with working out either, obviously. But is it like... They have those without caffeine in them?
Sure.
Oh, I don't... Okay. It's just me. I'm learning. Okay. All right. I thought it was like the key ingredient. Okay.
For a lot of the time it is, because it's just to wake somebody up. But a lot of it is just like getting the muscles prepared to exercise. Or to fuel them. And that's the same thing with creatine, like helping with recovery and things of that nature. Right. What was I saying?
Dang, my bad.
That's okay. I was talking about...
Getting to the room easier.
Oh, drinking.
Yes. No alcohol.
So, I think you can definitely come off as more approachable as a woman. Mm-hmm. Maybe than a man may. Because but again, that's sticky. Because the reason why they're approaching you is not the reason you want to be approached most of the time.
True.
Like, I've gone to networking events before where older men approached me and were asking if I was in a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's like, sir, I'm here for film opportunities. I'm not trying to find a boyfriend right now, you know? So...
Does that happen often?
No. I mean, it only happened a couple times when I first came down here. Oh, but now that Alex and I are together, you know, we go to these things together, so... People aren't that bold to come up to you if you're...
I'm glad they're not.
Most people.
I was going to say, most people
there's a few bold. Select that don't care.
Hey. How did he approach you? Was he nice about it?
Oh, yeah.
He was? Oh, that's nice.
Didn't give me a creepy vibe. It was just... I noticed you from across the room. Oh. You know?
Was it an obvious hit on, or did he...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was chatting with a guy that... Again, just meeting people. And he was like, oh, are you guys an item? I was like, oh, no, I just met this person.
Oh, he led with that? Okay.
Yeah.
That was obvious.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't turn him down, though. You were like, I don't know him.
That guy?
Yeah. Who? What guy?
Oh, I was like, oh, no, I'm not here with anybody. I'm just here to network and make connections. You know, just immediately steer the conversation.
Okay.
Kind.
Okay.
If that didn't work, I would have needed to be less kind. But fortunately, he was a very nice person. So that did go down any negative roads. But yeah, again, I just don't put myself in environments with those kinds of things.
There you go, man.
Could happen. So anyway, going back to, is it harder for men or harder for women?
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to everything.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Men definitely have to worry more about if what they're saying is misconstrued.
I feel like I do that too much. Yeah, I hear you.
Whereas women can get away with more of those things, I've found. And so sometimes, you know, a guy is just truly being, what's the word I'm looking for? Complimentary. Yeah. Just like, hey, you did your thing. I saw you. Like, that role was really impressive, and I'd love to work with you one day because you've got something. You know, that woman could be like, What do you mean I got something? What's that supposed to mean?
You're right. They could be. Now it's a lawsuit. Yeah, I hear you.
So, but for a woman, if she goes up to a guy and said, I absolutely loved your performance. You were absolutely heartbreaking, and it was a beautiful film. Congratulations. Right. That guy is going to remember that comment for the next 5 years.
He will.
Yeah. And so I think it can definitely be harder for men in that regard. But even just the power dynamic, most directors and writers are men.
Right.
Writing for the male gaze.
You're right. Correct, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm writing and directing. So I can write for the female gaze, or just not for anybody's gaze, just to tell a story.
Just to tell a story.
Just to shed light on topics that are important. Because the other way I think men definitely have it harder is when it comes to mental health. There's such a stigma about going to therapy as a guy.
Yeah.
That's actually the concept behind the next script I'm going to be developing. Is about a director who... You know the saying, hurt people hurt people?
Yeah, they do.
So, an abusive director that...
verbally abusive or physically abusive?
Or
both?
Just toxic. Toxic work environments.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank with whatever that looks like for you. But how you can live such a more fulfilling life and have such better relationships with people and be so much more respected if you're willing to put in the work to improve yourself first. There's a joke that I say a lot where there are far too many people in the film industry, in my experience, men, but women too, that dedicate the time and resources in film and in filmmaking that they should be dedicating in therapy.
Well, that's everywhere in the world. Every profession, yeah.
Right? It's like they don't either have the courage to talk about it or they don't have the money to talk about it, because therapy is very expensive if you don't have insurance for it. But they'll write a story where they have a woman in a compromising position rather than dealing with the root of that, for example. Or just someone with daddy issues that makes a movie about daddy issues instead of dealing with it, because art can be healing in a lot of ways. Like, that's why so much music is popular and heartbreak songs are so popular, is because it resonates with people.
Correct.
So there isn't necessarily any shame in that, but I think you can offer so much more if you're willing to look inward first before
nobody does that,
telling a story. But
more people should do that.
More people should, and that's why I want to make a movie about it. So that I can hopefully encourage more people to do that.
Are you familiar with Pretty Privilege?
Yes.
Do you use yours?
I don't think I ever had any. I was a late bloomer.
Okay.
I had braces until my senior year of high school. I was a board on both sides. I had no shape.
Okay. Well, all right.
I have a young face too.
Yeah,
so thank God I didn't get hit on by old people, because ugh. But no. But I didn't mind that, because that kind of stuff just always makes me uncomfortable anyway.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Man, women would be so much more dangerous if they realized the power they had. Like,
yeah, because again, like what I was saying, you might go to a film event, go to a film festival, see a producer, and position yourself in a way for them to notice you.
Yes. Whatever that may be.
Women can be very manipulative if they want to be.
Hey.
Because it works.
You ain't got to tell me.
So I recognize the power that I could have.
Yeah.
But
why don't you use it more?
I don't need to. I don't like manipulating people.
Would you though?
Would
if it came down to it, like in this industry, right? It's a tough industry. You may have a better chance if you did manipulate somebody with your pretty people. I'm not talking about backstabbing, but
I believe strongly in the golden rule of treating someone the way you want to be treated.
Right.
So if it was a circumstance where complimenting someone or being more friendly than I otherwise would be with a stranger, because I'm trying to make an impression, I don't see any harm or shame in that because someone else may do the same thing toward me. Correct. You know, you go to all these networking events and you introduce yourself as a filmmaker and someone's like, oh, let me get your Instagram. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's connect. Right. You know? Gosh, that's a really interesting question.
Is it one of the things you don't know till you get into it?
I guess so. Or you are
hard no, I would never go there. And
I mean, it is a hard no, but at the same time, sometimes you do things subconsciously.
So
because
it wouldn't be on purpose.
No.
Oh, and I don't mean, obviously we're talking about somewhere in the gray area. Obviously not. I don't mean something as light as a compliment, and obviously not going back to a guy's room. I'm not talking about those extremes, but like maybe even showing up to a networking event and maybe wearing something provocative, knowing that knowing that it's a room full of guys or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. Almost something a woman could do. You know?
Again, if it's a behavior I would be ashamed for my dad to see.
Right. Okay. That's a good rule to follow.
I wouldn't do it.
I hear you.
Right? Because, I'll wear a nice, short black dress occasionally for an event or something like that, or something that shows off my figure. But most of the time that's so I can feel confident going into a room. Is because it's very easy. I guess I would say that's something that women struggle with, going back to is it harder for men or women? Mm-hmm. But it's men too, of just your image. Yeah. Of trying to be body positive in an industry where everything is critiqued. Everything. Even the things that you wouldn't think people would notice, they somehow notice. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh man, I never thought about getting work done, but
I know, right?
Maybe now I will.
Right. Oh my goodness. Uh-huh.
So yeah, but when you get to a point where you actually love the body that you're in and you love the skin that you're wearing,
that must be a nice feeling.
And you're going to a place where you don't know people, and you might be nervous or insecure or feel out of your depth. Sometimes dressing up makes you
I feel you. Yeah, that
makes
sense.
You feel the part.
That makes sense.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I did that a lot in college when I had big presentations or tests. If I was nervous, I might dress up just to feel like a girl boss, like I got this.
Yeah, So it's not even like you just said this, but it's not necessarily for others, but it's to help you feel good, internally about yourself.
Yeah.
But to answer that previous question, you would not.
No, I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to answer honestly. I'm trying to think of an example where I might.
Yeah.
But no, because ultimately, I wouldn't want to think back on a connection or a relationship with somebody, and them realize that I manipulated them into it, because that would hurt me.
Right.
If it were the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't want to be taken advantage of, so I don't want to take advantage of anybody else.
Mm.
So.
No, I hear you. I do hear you.
Because
you recently
go, please.
Acted in a movie.
I did. Please shut me up. Please.
You were recently acted in a movie, Ambrosia, the first vampire, alongside Alex Javo. Tell me about the experience.
So, I talked a little bit about getting cast, and that was an experience where I felt way out of my depth.
Right? How so? Why?
Well, because it was my first time leading a feature. Obviously, Ambrosio is the title character. He is the main character. But being the female lead, being the love interest, is something I'd actually never done. I had been a female lead, but I'd never actually played a romantic interest after acting for 20 years. I was just never cast in those kinds of roles. Again, late bloomer. So I was always like the best friend of the love interest, like the happy-go-lucky, gee, I wonder why, right?
That's funny.
So that was all very new for me, and reading through the script, I saw that there were some more intimate scenes in there, and that obviously made me nervous because, again, had never done that before. I had a stage kiss before and had done a peck on camera before, but nothing like what the script depicted, and so that was immediately like a for me. And so when I feel unsure about something or I feel out of my depth, I just ask a million questions.
That's a good thing to do.
So I asked, will there be an intimacy coordinator? And they said that there wasn't one in the budget. And so then I took it upon myself to do research about intimacy coordinators and figure out how to do things while still protecting your boundaries and how to feel safe as an actress. And Alex was extremely communicative and extremely just safe. Because he had told me about another scene that he had done in a different film where that one they were being pressured into physicality. So that was a very
physicality.
Yes,
or like
yeah. So that was a very intense thing that he had to do, and he had said to his scene partner, "Would you rather rehearse it bit by bit, so you know exactly what's going to happen and you know how to prepare emotionally for it, or do you want to just do it in the moment and just whatever feels natural, right?" And he said the same thing to me. Well, A, what aren't you comfortable with? What are you comfortable with? Because there was a lot of different versions of some of these scenes that we talked about. And ultimately we decided the tasteful cutaway was just the best option for the film and for us as actors. But spoiler alert, the scene where they're in bed together after and it looks like we're naked, right? I was very fully clothed. Oh, really? You know, it's just camera tricks, right? So I was just wearing like a tube top that didn't have, but I had a bra and I had sweatpants and socks on, you know. And so there's a lot of things that I learned of different techniques and things that you can do to still feel safe and still feel less vulnerable as an actress when you're already doing something very emotionally vulnerable, to not feel physically vulnerable as well. So that I sincerely appreciated that because, again, it was my first experience playing a romantic lead. I had heard these stories about women that felt kind of taken advantage of one way or another. Like a guy would linger on the kiss longer than they had talked about or would like grab them in the place that wasn't discussed beforehand. And now instead of feeling like you went and did a job, now you almost feel like you were assaulted.
I'm not an actor, but I do hear you. But it sounds like such a muddy area.
And that's why intimacy coordinators are valuable to have, because the role of an intimacy coordinator is they talk to all of the actors involved in a scene, and they literally say, where are your no-no zones? What areas of your body? Because some people are just really ticklish, right? So they might say, don't touch my neck. Or don't touch like behind my ears, right? So if you want to touch their face, you have to touch their cheek or like their jaw, but like you can't touch here, right? And so they'll talk about everything, and that is an extremely vulnerable process too, because a lot of the time they'll actually do a touch test.
I'm sorry. What's
so touch test? You'll be there with your scene partner, and if you don't know what your boundaries are, you don't know what you're comfortable with, they'll like put a hand like here, and put a hand like here, put a hand on your hip, you know, and it's like, oh, I didn't like that. Okay.
Oh, they didn't. Oh, it just sounds interesting.
Yeah, and it is, and it's very vulnerable, right? But by doing that exercise, you have a safe bonding experience with your scene partner.
Yeah.
And you set those boundaries where everybody feels comfortable, everything feels consensual, and nobody feels taken advantage of. Because women can take the scene beyond what they were supposed to too. Like, it goes both ways. It's not just men. You know, women can do the same thing. So that's the value of an intimacy coordinator, is it eliminates a lot of those gray areas.
Most definitely. I see the value.
And for the crew too, because crew people, like the boom operator, is standing right next to potentially naked people, and they didn't necessarily consent to watching a simulated sex scene.
You're right.
And so intimacy coordinators provide barrier garments and decency things, so that way you're not actually nude, it just looks like you are. So there's all sorts of those things. So anyway, but we talked through everything. Everything was very well defined, so I could be as comfortable as possible. And I just asked Alex, you know, what do you have in mind for the character? Who inspired her? What films can I watch to kind of get the idea of the character? And he recommended taking from Adrian in Rocky, kind of her blossoming into a butterfly right? She starts off really, really shy and then kind of finds her confidence, finds herself. And similarly, Diane Keaton in Something's Gotta Give. That was another film that he recommended I watch. I hadn't seen it before, but it's a beautiful film. I really recommend it. I enjoyed it so much. And a similar thing where when you meet her, she's like wearing turtlenecks in every scene, and that's one of the reasons I bought turtlenecks for the character. Was because of her. That's why Sarah's wearing turtlenecks, is because of Diane Keaton and Something's Gotta Give. So I took a little bit from that as well, and for me, when I'm getting ready to prepare for a character, first I try to see the similarities that I share with her. So, for example, Sarah is a very curious person. Sarah is pursuing her graduate degree in the film when we meet her, and so I understood, you know, the stress of dealing with school. Like when he said, "Oh, your studies must be stressful," and she says, "Stressful is an understatement." Like that's something that I could feel because I've been there, you know.
Correct. Yeah.
And though, thank God, I have not been in a physically abusive relationship, I have been in relationships that were abusive in other ways. And so that emotional mindset of feeling trapped, or just being in denial that there's something better out there, is something that I could unfortunately relate to in a lot of ways. And so filming some of those scenes was extremely challenging for me. And in the very violent scene, I actually fully dissociated on set. And that had never happened to me before. It was the first full out take of like the punch and him picking me up and everything. And Tony O'Hara, who is my scene partner who played Paul, he is also a stunt performer and stunt coordinator, and he coordinated the stunts for the film. And so obviously I knew it was safe, and I love stunts. And so I was excited to do the scene because I love stunts, right? But in that moment, your mind doesn't always recognize, or your body doesn't recognize that this is pretend, right? And so there was probably a solid 30 seconds where I wasn't in that room on that first take. And
where'd you go? Like mentally?
It was just black.
Oh.
Like I could still hear, but I couldn't move and I couldn't speak. It was really scary.
Oh, man.
Like a complete detachment from reality for that moment, just as a safety mechanism, right? And obviously no one knew what was going on because I just was no longer responsive, right? So it was scary for everybody. It was a really, really hard day, especially for poor Alex. He just wanted to help me and he couldn't because he had to direct the scene. But having such a supportive team around you that like gave me the space to come back and breathe, and then Tony took me aside and said, okay, what can we do differently so that you feel safe and that, you know, that doesn't happen again, because obviously we don't want to traumatize you any more than necessary for this.
Right, yeah.
And so then I said, okay, well, we can do the same thing. I don't have any problem with like the first half of it, but when you're actually like pressing on my neck, give it like 20% less.
No, okay.
Right? And that was all I needed, right? To help me feel the panic of the character, but not Angelina herself panic, you know? And then the transformation scene. I thought that was going to be the hardest thing for me to film. I was dreading that day for all of production. And then when I got into that room and we started filming it, I was just cracking jokes in between takes and just having a good time. And it was actually kind of freeing in a way because it had been such a stressful, emotional weekend that just having an outlet to just cry was really cathartic in a way. So, you know, a scene that I thought would be easy ended up being really hard, and a scene that I thought would be hard ended up being really easy. And you just never know what to expect sometimes on set, or how your body or your mind's going to react to something that the character is experiencing. But now I know to prep a little bit more emotionally if I have another scene like that in the future, and I know to kind of walk through it with the scene partner and the stunt coordinators to help prevent something like that from happening. Because if it's never happened before, then you don't know how to prepare for it, right? So yeah, just finding things with her that I shared. But then when you're trying to find the things that you don't share with the character, then that's when you kind of have to start doing your homework. And there's all sorts of different, you know, fields of knowledge, like Adler and everybody, Meisner. And those are all exercises that I did in improv and theater classes growing up.
Did Alex help you with those?
Well, those are all things that I was already familiar with. Because, again, growing up in theater, you do all these exercises that you don't even realize as Meisner, but the repetition and substitution, all those things. You learn it, and then I kind of forget who's who sometimes, but all different techniques that I'm familiar with that you kind of pull from as needed. But for me, I see acting as an exercise in empathy, especially if you're playing a villain, right? Where everybody's the hero in their own mind. Everybody's the main character in their own story. Correct, yeah. So, though they might be making a decision or handling something a way that you never would, you need to empathize with why. You need to empathize with why they're not maybe being honest in a scene, why they're not saying what they actually feel, what's holding them back. Did they have someone that reacted negatively when they were honest in the past? What's the backstory? What's the subtext? That's something that scene study that I've kind of been trained to do for most of my life, is figure out what's not being said instead of focusing on what is. Right, correct. Because, again, difference with theater and film. With film, it's all in your eyes, right? And so if you're overthinking a scene, then it's not going to read in your face, right? And so I ask a million questions, as I said. I learn as much about the character as I possibly can. And sometimes the writer or the director might not have something fully fleshed out, or I might ask them a question that they might not have thought of that just seems so random and out of left field. Right. Like, did she go to college on scholarships, or did her parents have money? Like, what's her background? Is she living with this guy because she doesn't have anywhere else to go? That can really change someone's intentions.
It can. You're right.
For a character. Yes. But the director wasn't thinking about that. Right. She's just a love interest, right? Not in Alex's case. Alex,
he knew it.
You knew. I'm just giving examples, relevant examples. So yeah, I try to find out as much information as I can, but then I just fill in the blanks as I need to, and I try to find pieces of myself that I can imbue into the character, and things about the character that help me discover things about myself. That one role that I was referring to earlier, where that was beyond my comfort zone because of the attire and the subject matter. I kind of joke that she was my alter ego because there was very little of me that I could put into that character. But it ended up being so freeing in a way, and empowering in the sense that I finally had the confidence that I could actually maybe do this. Because if I can do that, which is not me at all, then I can do something where I share some similarities with these characters and things of that nature. So yeah, watching the movies, picking out the wardrobe, because I don't wear glasses. I don't normally wear turtlenecks. I normally drive my neck crazy because I have really sensitive skin. And so by wearing something unlike you, it immediately helps you get into character. That's something with theater too. That's why some of the costumes are so crazy, is because it just helps you get into that mindset for the character. And so, I show up on set and I'm excited for another day, and then I put on the turtleneck with the coat and the glasses, and it's like now I am shy. Right? And that was another funny thing too, is trying not to get the reflection of the light in my glasses. Oh yes. They were always like, tilt your head up, tilt your head up, tilt your head up. And so now I'm thinking about my lines, thinking about the emotion of the scene. Oh, and tilt my head up so my glasses don't reflect the lights. So it was a really interesting process playing her, and it was, again, really hard some days and such a joy, and just so fun other days. And to have such an incredible team, both the cast and the crew, everybody was just so fun to work with, and it was truly a blessing for this to be my first experience, because I know there are so many other ways that could have gone, but I'm thankful that I had it with the people that I had it with this character. And now that it's out, to be hearing a lot of positive reactions and reception has been really encouraging as well. Because in post-production, you know, we watched the film a million times trying to make it perfect. And
you were part of that process, the post-production?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Because I didn't even talk about my other roles other than Sarah. I also was a producer on the project.
Oh, okay.
An exec and a non-executive producer.
Okay.
And I was the second AD. I choreographed the dance scene. I script supervised. That was because continuity drives me crazy in films, and it's really hard to be mindful of continuity when the actor is the script supervisor. And so there's some things in the film that no one's ever going to notice, but I know.
Right.
Like in one scene, I had a scrunchie in my hair, and in the other scene, it was like a little hair tie. But it was supposed to be the same day. But we shot it on different days, so right. I didn't have the right hair tie or whatever.
Dang, you're right. I didn't notice, but okay.
And perfect example, the scene with the necklace. Sarah, I'm glad you came today. I wanted to show you this necklace. You'll notice she's not wearing her glasses, and then she puts them on to investigate the necklace. I had just forgotten to put the glasses on for the scene, right? So we had already shot that opening movement shot, the wide, and it was beautiful, and we'd already moved all the lights, and I was like, I wasn't wearing the glasses. I'm so sorry, you guys are going to kill me. I wasn't wearing the glasses. And they were like, we don't have time to go back and set it up. Like, that's what we have. That was a running joke on set. We have what we have. It's funny until it's not.
Until it's not. So you get the post.
And so I'm like, okay, what can we do? I was like, oh, she puts the glasses on to investigate. Like, they can just have Ben in her pocket. And so that wasn't scripted. That moment evolved because I screwed up. So we had to find a way to fix the continuity, because she wears glasses in every other scene until she turns, because then her eyesight's fixed, you know. So that was an interesting balance of being responsible to help make sure that we got all the shots we needed to get. So, you know, I'm in the bed doing the transformation scene, very emotional, crying, tears, can't see. And I'm like, wait, we were supposed to get a shot from that angle. And they were like, oh, yeah, you know. Because, I mean, Alex is thinking about a million things, too, being the director, the producer, the actor. And so it takes a village, right? Everybody contributes. Alex is a very collaborative director, which I also really appreciated, because having it be my first experience, feeling like I had some semblance of say in who she was and who she became, and that helped me feel safe in her, like embodying her in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was, I mean, obviously I love him, so people may take this with a grain of salt, but it truly was one of the greatest joys of my life to play this character and to be in this film and to fall in love with Alex in the process.
Great transition. You and Alex were not dating by the time you started production on the show, movie, and you all were dating by the end?
Yes.
Hey, you know, walk us through it, you know?
So, Alex and I had been friends for around 6 months before he offered me the part, and we had worked together on Malcolm. We met at a networking event. And I had seen, obviously, the caliber of his work. I'd seen how hardworking he was, and was just excited for the opportunity to do this film. And and so a lot of the film we did kind of shoot chronologically.
Oh, okay.
So the flashback stuff in Greece was our first day of production.
Right.
And it was very cold that day. It was January. It was high 40s, low 50s, and we're out there in togas. Very cold. And that kiss that Ambrosio shares with Celine was a very intimate kiss, right? I mean, it wasn't, you know, sexual or anything like in that sense, but it was a very intimate kiss.
It was, yeah.
And I was so nervous that day because, again, that was the biggest kiss I had done on camera before. And I didn't know how I would feel about it, right? And I remember I told my best friend, leading into it, how nervous I was. She's like, well, let me know how it goes. Like, I'll be thinking of you today. Like, good luck. Like, you got this, you know? And then we get to the scene and we shoot it, and, you know, we're cold. I'm thinking about a million things. But for me, that moment was very actually technical. I was, again, continuity brain, counting how many times our lips might have parted and come back together again. So that way it was consistent from shot to shot, because I knew that they were going to get a lot of angles, because there was the scene of them like in their own world, and then there was supposed to be that view of like Apollo sneakily watching them. So we did 12 or 14 takes of that kiss.
Dang,
and again, I was just, because I knew we were going to do it so many times, just trying to focus on having it be the same in my hand movements and everything, so that way it wasn't a nightmare to edit. And everybody was kind of cracking jokes while we were filming that scene, and they're like, woo, like, oh boy, you know, and just being funny to kind of, you know, make things less stressful or less awkward, just break the ice, you know.
That made it less stressful? Not less stressful, awkward?
Yeah, because we were just kind of laughing in between takes and freezing and trying to put our coats back on for some warmth. But I do remember I went home that day and reached out to my friend, and she was like, so how'd it go? How do you feel? And the words out of my mouth were, I'm in trouble.
Oh.
I knew I was in trouble. Because there's all these jokes, especially growing up in theater, about falling in love with your co-star. And it's not advised, because A, if you have a fight in the middle of production, then it's extremely awkward.
Yes.
Or even after production, if you're like trying to promote the film and you can't stand each other. Yes. And because Alex and I had a very intertwined social circle at that point already, because we were all working with the same. I mean, the independent film scene is very small.
It is.
It's a big, happy family. Well, hopefully happy most of the time.
It's a family.
It is a family. And so for the first month or two that we were kind of talking and seeing where this could go, I asked him to not be public about it, because I didn't want it to be awkward for everybody else, right? I didn't want them to feel a certain kind of way or whatever. And you also don't want to make a big deal out of something if it doesn't work out, right? For the reasons I just stated.
Of course.
So, yeah, we would just hang out all the time, and we would talk for hours and hours on the phone every night.
No.
Mostly about the characters, like, just that's kind of how it started, is we would just talk about the film, and I would have all these questions. Like, there was one time I sent him a text, like a big long text of all these questions that I had at like late at night, and I said, do not worry about texting me right now, this is just on my mind, just wanted to get this out there. And he just calls me and he's like, hey, I'm awake, let's just chat about it. And we ended up talking for hours, and it was just one of those natural friendship that just evolves into something more situations. It is, because you already know that person. You know they're not showing off for you, or they're not being fake, especially when you're dating actors, right? Because it's like, how do you know that that person's actually being genuine with you?
That's so scary,
right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know that this person isn't like creating an act around this relationship to try to be the kind of person that you want? Because I've had that happen to me before.
Oh, really?
And the guy wasn't even an actor, he was just really mentally ill.
Oh, mentally ill.
He's doing well though. Thankfully he's doing okay now.
That's a good movie.
That one I would not be able to retell. That was a rough experience. Anyway, back to Alex.
Right.
So,
well, I'm trying to get the timeline here. So
we
met at the networking event.
We met at the networking event. We're friends for 6-ish. Okay, so networking event was April. We filmed Malcolm in June. He invited me to participate in Ambrosio in September, and then I think the script was finished, and he offered me the part either October or November.
Okay, that's quick. All right.
So, like 6 months-ish, we'd known each other by the time he offered me the part. We started rehearsing the dance like November, December, January. Started filming end of January.
Okay.
And then we were together early February.
Oh.
Not officially, like publicly, but like as far as we were concerned, we were exclusive.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Oh.
Yeah, it was remarkably fast. I had not dated for almost 5 years before we started dating, because I had some rough experiences before that. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'm okay now.
I'm glad you are.
But I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. You do
and
crazy
so I was I was kind of in the I don't need a man. I don't, I'm content by
Alex,
myself.
though? Why would you throw all this out the window for Alex?
So that was kind of the funny thing too, because when he first started putting feelers out there, I told him I wasn't looking to date anybody.
How did he throw feelers out there? I'm just kidding.
He was asking are you on dating apps? Are you like going out with anybody? And just casual conversation, as one does when they're trying to find stuff out. And I was like, yeah, no, I mean, I'm really genuinely not looking for anything right now. He was persistent.
He seems like a persistent kind of guy.
He is. And for me, I don't necessarily look for traditional things that a woman may in a relationship, because I was already taking care of myself, so I didn't need someone to take care of me.
Gotcha.
I value my independence, so I didn't want to sacrifice that. And I had already been living down here in Atlanta, supporting myself by myself for a year at that point. So I didn't want to risk all of that effort and time and work on the potential of getting my heart broken and feeling to need to go back home because I didn't have my family here. You know what I mean? And that was my family's biggest concern too. When I first told them I was seeing somebody, they're like, be careful, guard your heart, don't move too quickly and everything. But for me, what I was looking for was trust, honesty, stability. Somebody that I know meant what they said and would put in the same effort and time and work into the relationship that I would put in. Because my biggest fear thinking about a long-term relationship was going down the aisle and not knowing for sure that the person across from me was going to keep those vows, because 50+% of people don't. Right? And I want marriage to be a one and done for me. I don't want to 2, 3, none of that. I'm not doing that. So I just needed somebody that I knew would be communicative, that I knew would be open and supportive. And the thing about an actor dating another actor, again, pros and cons to everything, right? The pros are they understand the passion, they understand the drive, they understand the heartbreak and the rejection, and so you can kind of cheer each other on in that regard and support each other through those hard times. Whereas if you were dating someone who wasn't in the industry, a lot of the time they're probably going to feel really insecure because you're going out and you're kissing other guys as part of your day job. It's difficult to expect somebody to genuinely be okay with that unless they understood that it is work and there's no real pleasure that comes from that, right? There is a separation, or at least there should be. And so I kind of fell for Alex while we were rehearsing the dance, because he didn't have a dance background and I was trying to teach, and he warned me that I might have a very difficult time teaching him because he claimed he had 2 left feet. He didn't. He picked it up surprisingly very quickly. But I saw clearly how hard he was willing to work and how much energy he was willing to invest in something that mattered to him. Right? And that's what I needed in a relationship, was somebody that I knew would fight through the hard times and not give up when the going got tough.
A lot of people do that. I feel
right?
Like they do that too easily.
And besides the fact that he and I work so well together, I mean, sure, we get at each other's necks sometimes. It's, you know, as with any relationship or any business partnership. Right. It just works, you know, where even on the hardest days, even when I can't stand to look at him, he's still the person that I want to go hug, you know? Like, I can be so mad at him about the randomest thing, and he's still the person that I want to comfort me.
Dang.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what... Because love is a choice.
It is a choice.
It's not a feeling. Infatuation is a feeling. But love is a choice. It's something you wake up and decide to do every day. And with Alex, I have full assurance that he's going to continue... Oh, God. And he's going to continue to do so every day.
Hey, what was that? Are these tears? Oh, snap.
Sorry.
All right.
Whew. Yeah, and that's... I mean, what else could you dream of? Right?
You tell me. Man, I need me an Alex. Goodness gracious.
You do. Everybody needs an Alex.
I have no tissue. Goodness
I'm
gracious.
good. I'm good. I just roll my eyes back and they go back in. It's great.
Right,
I'm
man.
Fine. I'm fine.
Whew.
So sorry.
Hey, man. Nothing to be sorry about. Man,
I love you.
When you guys get married?
Soon, hopefully.
Damn. All right. Okay.
I mean...
Nice. He knows this?
Yeah.
Okay,
this is a long ongoing conversation.
Oh, really? What's the holdup?
Well, if it were up to us, we would just go to the courthouse. But I'm very close with my family and none of them are here. No. So there's a lot of planning that has to go into that. And again, with my family being so far, my parents are still in Maine. My extended family's all in New Jersey. So Alex got to spend Christmas with everybody. So that was so fun because he got to finally really get to know the majority of the people that I care about. But they've only spent a few days with him, right? So I want my family to love him like a son and have, you know, their full support and full blessing and not, you know, rush into anything because there's no hurry, right?
What is it? Right.
So, but yeah, as far as we're concerned, yeah. We're both sure.
Oh, I sound like somebody in love. Yeah,
I am.
Oh, man. That's so sweet. Angelina, tell people where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Probably the best way to get in touch with me is Instagram at Angelina.Buzzelli. That's Buzzelli. Or if you want to contact me through email, my email is angelina.g.buzzelli@gmail.com. Always looking for acting opportunities, but also, as I said, getting into writing, directing as well. So stay tuned because there are some very exciting announcements on the horizon that I can't wait to share with people and challenge myself beyond what I've done so far. So,
speaking of announcements, what's last question? What's your dream Marvel character role? You say you wanted to always star in a Marvel movie. What's the role you want to play?
Probably like a Kate Bishop.
Oh, I was like, oh, really? Okay, yeah, all right.
Or an MJ. Or
really?
Gwen Stacy.
Okay, all right. Anybody.
Just like, because there's so many. Well, when I say Gwen Stacy, I mean more of like the Spider-Gwen.
I feel that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I love women that, you know, overcome adversity and find themselves, because a lot of those are kind of like coming of age stories, right? And figuring out who you are, and
that's the Spider-Man story.
I'm unfortunately very quickly going to find myself aging out of those kinds of opportunities, believe it or not. But yeah, and I mean any kind of Black Widow-esque thing. I love any strong female roles. I love, as I said, action and stunts. Those things are always fun for me. So, but honestly, even if you have to pause the film and you see me when you pause it, that'll still cross off the bucket list for me. I mean, unfortunately, Marvel isn't really filming in Atlanta much anymore, so maybe it'll have to be DC now. but I'll take what I can get, you know?
Ooh, I hear you.
Because while there's some things that I might not audition for, or I might decline certain invitations to do if I don't think it's a good fit for me, I don't believe I'm above anything, and I don't believe there's small parts, only small actors. I know that's kind of a saying that people say jokingly, but I truly believe it, because again, I wouldn't have gotten the lead in Ambrosio if I hadn't played a day player on Malcolm.
True that.
So if you are willing to put in the work and you're willing to do the smaller parts just to connect with people and work with new people, then you never know what those things could turn into down the road. Or you might work with them and figure out that it's not a good fit one way or another. But you figured that out when the stakes were lower. Versus if you got cast in a lead project and there's a huge difference of opinion or what have you, where now there's a lot more money on the line, there's a lot more stress on the line, and so your ability to say no or to leave a project when you discover that it's not a good fit for you one way or another, it's harder that way. So
Okay.
Sounds good, Angelina. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for talking your ear off.
It's okay.
How long have I been here?
It's been a little minute.
Oh,
you know?
my God. So thanks for watching the Content Bebop. Please come back and watch other episodes. They're not going to be this long. Thanks.
Hey, man, you know that's...
Thanks.